So like I said, while I'm home on quarantine, I'm going to be making some magnets over, and I'm going to start with a really simple one. I just have this, it's like a brown, but it's like a really deep red scrap, and I mean, it's not a lot at all. And I'm going to mix this pink because I want it lighter than this. And then I might add some, this is like really pale ecru into it. These are all scraps that I had. I'm not looking to make a big magnet, just a little magnet. And we'll kind of do basic techniques. And again, I'm going to move quickly, and I might voice over, and I might speed this up because I can only upload, it takes about 8 hours for me to upload a 20-minute video. So I'm going to mix these up until I get a mauve color, or like a dusty rose. So this is what I got when I mixed the pink in with it. It's about the right shade, but it's a little too pink. So I'm going to add some ecru into it, but then I'm going to also add some regular brown scrap I have into it, just to kind of tint down the pink a little bit. And I have a bunch of browns in my scrap from recently. Maybe this brown here. It's like a really, really deep brown. So maybe I'll add a little of that in there. Just to... And the only reason why I'm adding the ecru, because if I add this brown to it, it's going to darken it. So maybe that will lighten it. I'm just playing again. So I think for this one, now you could use some kind of cabochon mold and, you know, mold out a magnet, but I'm just going to do a flat one. I think I'm totally okay with that. And again, you don't need to use the same colors I'm using. Use whatever you want. I think I'm just going to do a simple circle, you know, a simple circle magnet. And so I'll probably do about that size because this is all I have of it. I might be able to get a little bigger. Okay. So maybe I'll just mark out my area. I'm not going to cut it yet. I'll cut it later. But just mark it out here. And then I'm going to lay it on my tile I plan on baking on. So it's nice and stuck down to my tile. Trying not to get any air bubbles underneath it or anything like that. And again, I'm going to remark it now that just so I know where to put my pattern. And then I was thinking I was going to use white to make something, but a dirty white. Use some of your scrap white you have. I really don't have scrap whites very often. It's very rare that I have scrap white, but I just used this the other day when I made these. And I have a bunch of lit in it, so I think this will be perfect to use. So all we're going to do is roll out like a little sausage. And we're going to do flowers and vines. And they're actually fairly easy to do. You do want to get yourself some kind of needle tool. I made a bunch of my needle tools just by taking a needle and putting clay around it, really is all I did. And so one of them is really bent, one of them's straight, and then I do have actual ones that I bought that are bigger than that, but these are a lot of times too big. So we're just going to make some simple daisies and some vines and stuff like that, and it's pretty easy to do. So you want to get a sausage that's fairly even in a certain area that you're going to use from, and then you're just going to cut pieces from it. So let me get the end off because that's skinnier. And so we'll just do some like little daisies or something. So let me just cut a few of these. About the same size, so when you roll it up into a ball, it's all about the same size. And then you just roll them into little balls. You could do one at a time or multiples. I'll show you this one and then I'll kind of speed it up. I mean, you could do a ball and then lay it on your piece and then do another ball, and you don't have to roll them all into balls right off. So this is what people call polymer clay embroidery. few of them rolled up. And they don't need to be perfect balls, just so they're about the same size when you flatten them out. Okay, and then you're going to roll it into a teardrop shape. So I'm only rolling kind of on one side. And depending how long you get it will depend on how long your daisy is. So again, I'm going to do a couple of them at a time so that way I can just lay them on all at once. I haven't done this in a long time, honestly. But the magnets that I just posted on my Facebook the other day were the first things I did, and they were at a Sculpey 3. And over the last year or so, just by touching them or anything, they've kind of, the petals are broken off. And so while I'm home, might as well make one or two. Okay, so now that you have a few of them there, you're just going to begin laying them on. So usually you can just kind of pick it up with your tool, set it on there, and then with the point going towards the center, because that's the narrowest, you're going to push down in. This is hard to do on camera because usually I'd have it a lot closer to me. Like that. Okay. And again, I'm putting more pressure on the tip than I am the end. And I know I have a piece of hair right there, but that's okay. I'll probably cover it up anyways. Oh, my needle tool keeps twisting on me. Sometimes if my ends get a little square, you can round those off a little bit more if you want. You know, you can nitpick with this. This is something that you can play with and keep messing around with. It's not hard to do now that we have a whole bunch of freaking free time. My needle tool, see, keeps spinning, so I gotta fix that. You can do as many petals as you want. I mean, this doesn't need to be And like that one got a little long, so what I'll do is I'll drag these out a little bit. And last one. I can pick it up. Like I said, most likely I will go around and pushing the edges to where I want them. Round them up a little bit. You could put a little indent in the end of them if you wanted. I won't nitpick it on camera, but I wanted to show you kind of what I would do with one. And obviously we need a little center. Okay. We can add like texture in the center if we wanted to, add some little dots or something later. Kind of whatever you wanted to. You can do colors too. I'm just gonna stick with white on this one. And then what we'll do is like little vines. So I'll get a really, really skinny strip. Usually I would do all the flowers. So actually let me lay all the flowers in first, and then we'll do vines in a minute. So I'm gonna lay in a few more flowers. Okay, now I got a few flowers on there, and I wanted to show you a couple of old ones that I did, but again, these are out of Sculpey 3, so if I bend these too much, they're going to snap. So there's one, and this is a very similar one, just on black. Okay, I did one like this a long time ago. Now these have been sitting in a thing for a while. And I just recently went through my old canes. I made this cane like a year and a half, 2 years ago, and I just made this one the other day. Just 'cause, with scraps. I made this one, not super thrilled with this one, but I made this one a long time ago. And I made this one off of Fiona Abel Smith's tutorial, but again, Sculpey 3, so you barely touch and it will break. I mean, just barely touching these things. So if you want to clean your fridge or anything and you just barely, boop, break. See how crumbly it is? So that's why I'm playing with new ones. Fiona Abel Smith has a tutorial on this cherry blossom one. So I'm going to be making, oh, here's one that I did on a bezel. So we're going to make some little vines here that we can put on. So I just rolled out a really long, skinny snake here. And I think maybe I'll just put on curlicue or something. I should have rolled it out a little longer. It's really hard to get them that skinny. It really is. This is all, like I said, probably primo scrap right now. And then I'll make a couple little, you can do dots, which I'll probably do, some white dots, but I will also probably do some vines or some stems even off of these flowers, maybe we'll do. So pretty much it's all the same way you were doing the petals, just different types of tools will give you different impressions in them. I have this dental tool from work, or I've had it for years. It's called a beaver tail or a Hollandback, depending on the brands. So there's all kinds of instruments you can get that will give you different impressions. So I'm just going to keep doing this. I'll do it in a sped up version because it does take a little while, but it's fun. It's nothing hard. And now that I think I got enough on there, we can either cut the size I decided, or I can go down one and kind of do what I like the most, which I am contemplating doing. Something like that. Let's just do it. There we go. So I'm going to bake this for a full hour at 275. And yeah, pretty much I'll show you. Actually, I've already showed you how to apply the magnet, but I'll show you when I'm done. I will probably varnish it with the Liquitex matte because the shiny gets too shiny for me. This has the Sculpey brand varnish on the top, the shiny one. Maybe the satin actually. But I think the Liquitex gives a nice matte finish because if it's too shiny, I feel like it reflects too much. So I might do the Liquitex, but I'll show you it when it's done. Now you can decide to do a border too. Actually, this one may look pretty with a border. I'm going to bake it first. Let's get it baked, and then I'll try to figure anything else out after. So 275 for an hour. Actually, if I'm going to put a border on it, I'm only going to do a half hour, and then I'll do an hour later. So this one's out of the oven, and before I do anything else, I think I'm going to make a set in all these muted colors. So I just took any kind of scraps that I thought would go, and I'm going to do very similar designs on each, except for I think I'm going to put background texture on a couple of them. So one of them I have this old dog collar, just a piece of it, and I think maybe I'll use that on this one. So just grab like a roller or something. I'm not looking for crazy amounts of texture, just something. I don't know, something different. Yeah. Doesn't need to be even, doesn't need to be perfect, just some kind of texture in there. And really the background doesn't show too much, so. Okay, so that one I'm going to use that. And I know it's uneven, but that's fine because we're going to cut out a little circle and we're going to have stuff all on top of it, so it doesn't really matter. Something different. On this one I have, you know, that non-slide stuff that they make. I think on one of these I'm going to use this. Yeah, that'll be different. I think on one I'm going to use a sponge, and I don't know, maybe, let's see if this works. This one is a binder, it was like on a notebook type thing. This might give me a light pattern, it might not. You know what, actually, I think one I'm going to use a sponge, one I'm going to use a comb on. Because the comb will give me either a comb or a needle, just dragging a needle across. You can use a comb. Dragging it down like this. Or a needle tool, just dragging it down a bunch. Cool. Maybe I should leave two plain, I don't know. Or maybe we'll use a toothbrush on another. an old, this is actually a denture toothbrush. Oop. It's getting leftover clay that I had from something else on it. Hang on. Just gotta flick it off. I might mix that back up because I got some clay on it, and then just do that all on top of it as a light texture. So I'm going to mix that back up. And then I will build up white patterns on all of them. And when they're all done, I'll show you what we're going to do border-wise. Okay, so I'm going to use my extruder, and I'm choosing the second smallest of all of them, because I did these on setting 2, so the second smallest. I put some white clay inside the extruder, and I'm not going to roll it out like I've done before. I'm going to leave this sausage a circle to border these guys. So using a little Bacon Bond with my finger, just spreading a really thin layer on it just to make it sticky, but not like really slippery. And I did, other than the first one I did these because I thought they're going to be magnets where there's no up or down. The first one I didn't really think about it, but I'm not going to be paying attention when I stick them on the fridge or put something underneath them if it's facing the right way. So I kind of made the pattern go all the way around so it could, there's no up or down. I think they're a cute little set. So I'm just going to wrap the border around it. And then cut it. And then try to smooth off the seam as much as you can. And I used a little silicone tool here, but it still had resin on it, so I tried to wipe it off really easily and quickly, but then it got hair on it or fuzzy on it. So that's what you're seeing me try to mess with to get that fuzzy off. I actually really like these. I think these will be cute. I have a black fridge, so I think these will be cute on my black fridge. And because I have a metal circle cutter, there's always that indent on metal cutters. They work really, really well. They have a nice clean cut. There's always that seam where the two pieces of metal go together. And you definitely see it on my round cutters. I gotta get a set of plastic ones. So I'm just kind of patting them on there. So now they need to go in for the final bake. So I will do a full hour, which means the outer layer, the last part to go on, will get an hour, and the inside will get an hour and a half, because I only bake the insides for a half hour, which is fine, but you do want the last part of clay. Even if you say you do 2 flowers and just bake it so you don't squish them, and then you do another flower, no matter what, the last piece of clay that goes on needs over a half hour. It's just not strong enough. So I'm going to bake them for an hour at 275 because it's mainly Primo. And then when it's done, we will apply the magnet. While those are in the oven, I'm going to get my magnets ready. And I locally can buy these strips. Now, you can find all different types of magnets, but this is what I have. And they have a sticky side, but it's not sticky enough to hold on. And in the past, what I did was I used a little bit of E6000, and what I did was I scuffed up the back of the clay, and I had another piece here. I scuffed up the back of the clay and stuck it on and did not do anything to the magnet and applied some E6000, but it's not strong enough. And after like 6 or 8 months, the E6000 started peeling off and not holding well enough. Is this one? This is one that I did what I'm going to show you to, and it's a lot stronger. These are another 2 I made, and we'll probably make something like this soon, but you got to start with the basics. And again, they're sculpy, so you can see some of these pieces of grass have broken off and stuff. So what I'm doing while they're baking is I'm going to make some gouges in the magnet itself, the sticky part that I'm going to put the E6000 on, and I'm going to put texture in the back of the magnet, in the back of the clay, so that way it has the E6000, the glue, or super glue, or whatever kind of glue you use, has texture to grip into on the magnet and onto the polymer clay. Okay, so all I'm doing now, you can use a Dremel grinding bit just to get some texture in here, which I showed you on that polymer clay embroidery, the only pendant or the only magnet I've done, that flower basket. So with this one, that one I showed you how to grind. With this one, I'm just going to use my stamp maker thing and just gouge some lines into it maybe. Now they are magnets, so these little pieces want to stick. So just gouge some crosshatch lines, some regular lines, just to get some texture in there. And then I'm also going to take my blade, my craft knife, and I'm just going to slit down to get some finer lines. Doesn't have to be perfect because you're not going to see any of this. We can cut some like little circles in it, just hunks of this magnet out, and that way the glue has something to stick into. Now some people inset these magnets into the clay, like on the backing they'll cut like a square out and put the magnet in it. Most magnets will not be magnetized if you bake them, especially like the metal ones, so you have to remove them before you bake them. So I just do it this way. So while I'm sitting here watching a movie, I will get some texture on these guys, and they're almost done baking, and then we'll apply the glue. And I think on each circle I'm going to put 3 magnets or 3 pieces. 2 smaller and a kind of bigger one, because I want them to be able to hold like a piece of paper or a photo or whatever I want to put on or under. I don't want to just have a decorative magnet. I want to use it to hold something, you know what I mean? And some of these old ones I have to redo actually this one I think I've redone. A couple of them I've redone, a couple of them I haven't redone. So I think a few I have redone already. Yep, because they're holding nice and firm. So, but some of them they've fallen off. Like there was one here, but it fell off. See, this one, there's no texture on the backside. There was just texture on the clay, but it didn't hold. So you got to put texture on the clay and on the magnet if you're going to use these type. But again, these are the only ones I can buy locally, and I have a bunch, even more than this. So I'm going to use them up. On my last one here, and it is faster to do this with the Dremel for sure, but you know, just put on a movie, put on your audiobook, whatever you want to do. You know, if you have magnets that are textured, great. If you have those metal ones that have some texture on them, awesome. With these ones, I just know from personal experience, this is what I got to do if I want to be able to take the magnet on and off the fridge and not have the magnet stick to the fridge and my polymer clay come off the magnet, because that's what happened. I went to put something behind the magnet on my fridge, and my polymer clay came off, and the magnet was still stuck to the fridge. I was like, great. And so now I know this is what I have to do. So that's what I'm going to do, and that's why I'm showing it to you. And if you have another way, awesome. Now, other thing to think about is your glue. You do want to use a glue that is polymer clay compatible and is not going to mess with your polymer clay in a year or so and turn it gummy. My polymer clay is still solid here. The E6000 I do know is polymer clay compatible. You could use the Lisa Pavelka's Poly Bonder. That would probably, her high temp glue, that would probably work fine. So either way, I'm ready to apply these, and I think they all should fit here. So now what I need to do is just mark. Now you can get fancy about this, or you can just make a mess of the back like I did here. I'm going to try to keep these a little nicer because I am more experienced now. So I'm just marking how wide these things are. And that way I know where to put these guys. goes there. Yep, that one will go here. So I'm just kind of putting a scuff mark in the back, and I will scuff these up as well, whether it's with your blade or, again, you could use a Dremel and just some kind of bit. There's tons of bits. I've put some on my Amazon page. There's all kinds of bits you can use. This is a carbide one. I have diamond ones in that bag, whatever you want to use. Now I'm going to move this away from the magnets because the magnets have a sticky side. And so I don't want this to stick to them. So I'm going to put you over my lap. And pretty much just stuff it up. But use whatever you have. You can use your craft knife. You just got to give the glue something to stick onto. Again, if you were just going to stick it on your fridge and not ever move it, okay. But if you plan on taking it on and off, you're going to want something. I promise you that. Just taking a toothbrush to get all the grit out. And now we have some texture. And then all we'll do is apply the E6000 to it. And again, you could just take your blade and scuff it up too, like that. So this E6000 is getting pretty old, so I think I don't even know if I'll be able to get anything out of the tip unless I put a needle through it. So I did just jam this through and got it open, but I actually have a hole right here. And this is probably like 2 years old, this E6000. So, and I do not use it often. Honestly, this is like the only thing I use it for. If I could have found locally a smaller tube of it, I probably would have bought a smaller tube. So I'm going to put some on here. I think the stuff in the top part is actually set up here. Maybe I'll have to use the, no. I was going to say maybe I'll have to use a poly bonder, but this is cheaper. So I'm going to try to use as much as I can, even though it might be set down at the bottom here, or at the top. This will probably be the last time I can use this tube though, because it's got a hole in it now. Too much air is going to get in it. So I'll make sure I redo my old magnets. I'm trying to squish it down in those holes. And then for my pieces, I'm also going to get some and kind of get it down in that texture. Not coating the whole thing, I'm just trying to make it as adherent as I can. I'm trying to push it down. Hang on, sorry, my camera's in a bad shot. Trying to push it down into the texture. And again, I made it so if it's this way up, it's fine. If it's this way up, you know, so there's no top or bottom on these. And that way I can just put them on the fridge and I don't have to worry about having them upright. You know, like, obviously if I just stuck this on the fridge and I put it like this, you'd be like, okay, that's upside down or sideways. Other than this first one, the other ones I made it so they could go in any direction and they would look somewhat upright. You know what I mean? So, anyways. Put a little bit more on these guys, and then I'll stick them on. Oh, and we have to let them set, and then I will show you them upstairs on my refrigerator. Now it's easier if you have these at home. It's easier if you cut these grooves in a long strip than when you cut them into small pieces. So if you're trying to texture your magnet, leave it in, you know, cut a long strip and then texture it and then cut it up into little pieces, because it's harder to hold these small pieces. But I was trying to reuse ones that had fallen off old magnets that I had already cut. Really give it a good push on there. And then I'm going to flip it upside down and leave it on my table like this. And that way it's putting just a little bit of pressure on it. And we'll let it set. And then I'm going to finish the other ones here. And I'll also put a magnet on these ones. And then I'll go hang them upstairs. So I've touched up some old ones. And I got these setting. And they're ready almost once the glue hardens. Now the reason why I did the back first is so then while it's drying I can glaze the front. Now I do like to put something on them, one just to protect them, not that you're going to be rubbing them much, but it's on my fridge. What if, say, I don't know, I drop something and it splashes on them or whatever maybe, or I just want to wipe them off in 5 years because they get dusty. It might just help keep the colors cleaner as well. I don't know. I'm just going to glaze them. So I can show you two glazes that I've used before. This is the Sculpey brand, has some glazes. They have a gloss and a satin. And this one's the gloss and this one's the satin. Now when it's too glossy as it's reflecting here, I feel like you lose a lot of that. Like you can still see every petal well when it's matte. But when it's really glossy, if the light's really shining on it, you can't really see it until you move. So I don't like a super glossy varnish. Take some junk pieces and test them out at home and see, on junk clay. Just have a little, it doesn't need to be big, like this big, and do a swipe of satin, do a swipe of glossy, do a swipe of a matte, and write down next to it what it is. And that way you know what you want in the future. So on these ones, I'm going to do matte, just because I prefer that. And these are my old ones that are already done. But I'm going to do these guys. And I'm going to use the Liquitex matte varnish. And I've showed you guys this before, but I don't know. I, for some reason, couldn't... Maybe they do have a matte, and it's not matte enough for me. I don't remember. Either way, I have the Liquitex matte, and it does give a little sheen, but definitely not as much as any other glazes I've tried. I've tried a couple, I have like 4 or 5 diamond glaze. I have this other glaze, I don't remember who it's from. It's a glaze and glue, I don't know. So I'm going to use this. I have a nice fluffy brush that I'm going to use just to kind of spread it on and just paint a coat, maybe 2 coats on there, and then let it dry, and I will show you them upstairs. But I just wanted to let you know that I am going to glaze them. Let me show you the difference between the varnishes. Also, I do have some products that I've tested. I do know this Liquitex is polymer clay compatible. I am testing right now. I have Nail UV, a brand of Nail UV clear coat, one brand of polish, another brand of polish, and I'm waiting for the foil glue because it needs to sit on the clay for 6 months to a year to see if it's polymer clay compatible. I also have different products that I've been testing in this container here. Some of them have been going since September, some of them November I started. So some of them in August. So I'm waiting to see if they're compatible with polymer clay. I'm not going to use something that's not compatible and tell you to use it if I'm not sure. So I know a lot of people have been using the foil and the foil glue for nail art, but it may work well first, but in a year or 6 months to a year, if it turns your clay sticky, then it's not polymer clay compatible. So don't, unless you know for sure that it is, I would hate to say, yes, use it. Great, awesome, this looks beautiful. And then have all of these pieces go to crap in 6 months. Or if you're selling them, have the person who bought them go, what is going on? And they start it turns like old gum. It's weird. And you don't want to be selling pieces and have people, yeah, no, that would not be a good thing. So I do have things I'm testing, and I'm not using things that I haven't tested, okay? Or the Polymer Clay Tutor on YouTube, she tests a lot of products, so make sure someone has tested it. The Blue Bottle Tree, I know, puts out reports on things they've tested as well. So, you know, definitely make sure you've checked it out, and not just checked it out, but someone has checked it out and everything's good to go. What is that? Glitter? So this is the Liquitex Matte Varnish. Okay, a little sheen, but not tons. Let's see. This is Polymer Clay Plain over here, and obviously the matte varnish. So it's not super shiny. Then we have the satin. Definitely a little more shiny. And then we have the gloss. And these are the Sculpies. Okay. So, just wanted to show you that. I'm going to go upstairs and hang them up. Be right back. There. They're all on the fridge. And hung up. Good to go. I think they're a cute little set. Look. Daddy just made a hamburger with their bacon. Hi, boys.